start by addressing something most men overlook. If you want a woman to truly open herself to you, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually, you must learn to lick her ego before you ever reach for her body. And no, this isn't about being manipulative or flattering her just to get what you want. This is about understanding how women are wired. Deep down, every woman craves to feel chosen, not just chased. Admired, not just desired. And a man who knows how to stroke that part of her, the part that wants to be seen as special, exceptional, irreplaceable, is the one who owns her attention and affection on a level far deeper than lust. You see, women live in a world that constantly critiques them, how they look, how they age, how they behave. So when a man comes along who doesn't just look at her body, but looks into her being, everything changes. He compliments her not just on her beauty, but on the way she thinks. He notices the effort she puts into the small things. He speaks life into her identity, not just her image. That kind of man does something powerful. He validates her value before trying to access her intimacy. And that right there is what separates the ordinary from the unforgettable. Because let me be honest, any man can touch her skin, but it takes a rare man to touch her self-worth. When you learn how to connect with a woman's mind and her sense of self, when you make her feel intelligent, important, and deeply appreciated, you unlock something no one else can reach. Her trust, her admiration, her softness. That's when she starts to crave you, not just with her body, but with her whole being. And the beauty of it is, this isn't about pretending. It's about noticing. It's about being intentional. You tell her what others overlook. You highlight her strength, her resilience, her brilliance. You become the mirror she never knew she needed. And what happens then? She begins to associate your presence with elevation, with joy, with meaning. That's when you stop being just a man and become her man in her heart and mind. A lot of men think masculinity is just about dominance, but true masculine power is in the ability to make a woman feel safe enough to be feminine. That safety begins not in the bedroom, but in the words you speak and the respect you show. When she feels like her essence is honored, when she feels like she's more than just a body to you, that's when she lets you in, fully, completely, without hesitation. So ask yourself, are you the kind of man who just wants to taste her? Or are you the kind of man who builds her up so she willingly offers herself to you in every way? The man who truly licks a woman isn't the one focused on her curves, but the one focused on her confidence. Because when you feed her ego with genuine admiration, she'll feed your soul with something even deeper, devotion. And that, my friend, is where the real power lies. Here's something that separates the men who merely tolerate from the ones they secretly ache for: the ability to pay attention to what she's not saying. It sounds simple, but most men miss it completely, and that's because they're too busy reacting to what's loud and obvious. Her words, her tone, her body language, while completely overlooking the subtle, quiet signals that reveal her emotional world. The man who licks her the most, emotionally speaking, is the one who listens beyond her voice. He picks up on the sigh she lets out when she thinks no one's listening. He notices the shift in her energy, the delay in her replies, the way her smile doesn't quite reach her eyes. That's the man who gets under her skin and stays there. Why does this matter so much? Because women are complex emotional beings. Society teaches them to suppress, to smile through discomfort, to say, "I'm fine," when they're crumbling inside. So the man who sees through the mask, who doesn't just hear her words but feels her heart, is a rare and precious presence. She won't forget him. She won't question his intentions. And most importantly, she will feel safe. Emotional safety is not just about being kind. It's about being tuned in. It's about understanding her emotional rhythm, knowing when she's withdrawing because she feels overwhelmed, when her silence means she needs reassurance, when her sarcasm is a defense mechanism and not defiance. That kind of awareness is seductive. It tells her that she doesn't have to explain herself constantly, that she doesn't have to perform her emotions just to be understood. She can simply be, and you'll still get her. And that, gentlemen, is power. When a woman feels like you understand her unspoken language, she begins to open doors she's kept locked for years. She tells you things she's never said out loud. She lets you into her world without you even asking. Not because you forced it, but because you earned it through quiet attentiveness and emotional intelligence. This level of connection can't be faked. You can't just nod and pretend to listen. You have to care. You have to genuinely want to understand her, not to fix her, not to control her, but to know her, to honor her experience, to witness her in ways no one else ever has. And when you do that, something profound happens. She begins to associate your presence with peace, with clarity, with safety. That's when she begins to crave you in ways she doesn't fully understand herself. A woman's silence is never empty. It's full of messages, memories, emotions she's waiting for the right man to decode. Be that man. Be the one who listens with your soul, not just your ears. Because when you hear what she's not saying, she starts to believe you can handle everything she's afraid to show. And once you reach that level, you're no longer just in her life. There's a kind of man every woman remembers. One who doesn't just admire her body, but understands her wounds. And I'm not talking about being a savior or trying to fix her. That's not what she wants. What she craves, often without even realizing it, is a man who acknowledges the parts of her she's had to hide, deny, or survive. A man who doesn't flinch when she reveals the pain behind her strength. The man who truly licks her in the deepest sense is the one who's not just turned on by her beauty, but moved by her scars. Because whether you know it or not, every woman carries wounds. Wounds from childhood, from broken trust, from men who took more than they gave. Some of those wounds are still open. Some are buried under layers of perfection, independence, or control. And the man who earns her soul doesn't rush to touch her skin before he's honored her story. He recognizes that her body is a temple, but her pain, that's the altar. And only a man with emotional maturity can kneel at that altar with humility. It starts with emotional presence, with patience, with paying attention to the little things she mentions in passing, the breakup she still can't talk about, the betrayal that made her stop believing in love, the moment she began to build walls instead of bridges. This man doesn't use that knowledge to manipulate her. He uses it to understand how to love her better, how to move with care, how to become the exception to every man who treated her like an option. And when you do that, when you gently hold space for her pain without judgment or pressure, something magical happens. Her guard drops. Her femininity blooms again. She starts to feel safe enough to be soft. And for a woman, that's everything. Because real feminine energy doesn't just want to be desired. It wants to be healed in the presence of someone who truly sees her. Too many men want access to a woman's body without earning access to her emotional world. But the ones who stand out, the ones who live rent-free in her mind, are the ones who made her feel whole again without even trying. Not because they were perfect, but because they were present, calm, safe, and willing to love all of her, not just the easy parts. You see, when you kiss her wounds, metaphorically, you're not making her weak. You're giving her permission to be human. You're showing her that her brokenness isn't a burden to you, that her depth doesn't scare you, that her past doesn't make her unlovable. It makes her layered, real, and worth every bit of effort. And when a woman sees that kind of man, she never looks at another the same way again. Because the man who doesn't just touch her body, but honors her hidden pain, that's the man who touches her soul. If there's one thing women find increasingly rare in today's world, it's a man who's genuinely curious about her mind, not just polite, not just interested in what she does or where she's from, but truly fascinated by the way she thinks, what she believes, what lights her up when she talks, the kind of man who licks her mind with curiosity, not for performance or approval, but because he's drawn to her inner world with the same hunger that others reserve only for her physicality. See, most men don't realize this, but intellectual intimacy is one of the most underrated forms of seduction. When you ask a woman questions that make her pause, reflect, go deeper, questions no one else dares to ask, what you're really doing is awakening a part of her that's often ignored. Her need to be mentally pursued, not instructed, not corrected, pursued, challenged, stimulated. It's easy to compliment her looks. It takes almost no thought. But when you compliment her reasoning, when you show appreciation for her perspective, even if you don't fully agree, when you create space for her to explore ideas without fear of judgment, that's when you become unforgettable. Why? Because in that moment, she realizes she doesn't have to shrink. She doesn't have to tone herself down. She doesn't have to perform intelligence or apologize for being passionate or opinionated. She gets to be her full self, and you want more of it. That kind of attention is intimate. It builds a bridge that's more powerful than touch. And it's not about having all the answers either. It's about being genuinely interested in how she got hers. A man who asks, "What made you believe that?" or "How did you come to that conclusion?" is doing more than making conversation. He's inviting her into mental intimacy, where her thoughts are just as valued as her appearance. And here's the real beauty. When a woman feels intellectually seen, she begins to open up emotionally too, because the mind is often the first gateway to the heart. And when she feels that you're not just trying to impress her, but understand her, she starts to feel safe. Not safe in a passive way, but safe enough to be real. Safe enough to be brilliant, complex, vulnerable, all at once. Women aren't just looking for chemistry. They're looking for someone to be understood in the way that women aren't just looking for they're looking for connection. And connection happens when you stop treating her like a checklist and start relating to her like a mystery worth unfolding. When you stop assuming and start exploring. When your conversations go from surface level to soul level, not because you pushed, but because you made room. So, ask yourself, when's the last time you made a woman think about herself in a way she never had before? That's the kind of man she remembers, not just because of how he made her feel, but because of how he made her expand. Because the man who licks a woman's mind with curiosity becomes the man who lives in her thoughts long after the conversation ends. There's something powerful about a man who knows how to be fully present, not distracted, not halfway in, present. A man who licks a woman's energy with presence doesn't have to say much, and he doesn't need to perform. His stillness speaks. His attention calms. His focus makes her feel like, in that moment, nothing else in the world matters except what's unfolding between the two of them. And the truth is, we live in a world of noise. We live in a world of noise, constant notifications, endless scrolling, short attention spans. Most men are physically there, but emotionally absent. They hear her words, but don't feel their weight. They sit beside her, but don't really see her. And what they miss, what they completely overlook, is how deeply a woman desires to be consumed by a man's presence. Not his pressure, not his control, but his steady, undivided awareness. When a woman is in the presence of a man who's grounded, whose energy is still, who's not trying to rush the moment or move the interaction somewhere else, she can feel it. It's not something you have to say, it's something she senses. It gives her permission to exhale, to let go of her guard, to be in her body without tension. That kind of presence is magnetic. She begins to crave you not because of what you do, but because of who you are when you're with her. And this is where so many men miss the mark. They think they need to impress, entertain, dominate the conversation. But the truth is, the man who's able to create a calm, emotional field, who listens with intention, who moves without urgency, who pays attention without drifting, is the one who seduces her on a deeper, more primal level. He's not just reacting to her, he's attuning to her. He's not just present in the room, he's present in the moment. Presence is energy. It's felt in your eye contact, in your breath, in your ability to stay comfortable. Stay with the discomfort. Stay with her silence. Stay in the moment without needing to escape or fix. Most women spend their lives being around men who are physically close but emotionally absent. So when she finally meets one who is both emotionally and energetically here, truly here, he becomes unforgettable. Let's talk about unforgettable. That's why sometimes the most powerful moments between two people are the quiet ones. The way you look at her when she's not speaking, the way you hold space for her emotions instead of rushing to make her feel better, the way your energy says, I'm not going anywhere. That is presence. And presence is safety. And safety is what unlocks desire. So if you want to be the man she remembers, the one who reaches her in ways she can't explain, stop chasing attention and start offering presence. Let your stillness speak louder than your words. Let your awareness be the gift that makes her feel chosen. Because the man who licks her energy with presence becomes the place she returns to again and again. Not just to be seen, but to be felt. There's a reason some men leave a lasting imprint on a woman's life, long after the relationship ends, long after the touch fades. And it's not because they were the most handsome or the wealthiest. It's because their presence carried intent. They didn't love on autopilot. They didn't approach women out of boredom, loneliness, or ego. They moved with purpose. They licked her spirit, not just with affection, but with direction. You see, a woman can sense when a man knows what he wants, not just from her, but from himself. Intent isn't just about declaring commitment. It's about embodying clarity. The man who walks in intent doesn't play game. He doesn't lead with confusion, then expect loyalty. He doesn't dip in and out of emotional availability. He shows up whole, grounded, transparent. That energy alone tells a woman everything she needs to know about where she stands, and more importantly, about where he stands within himself. When a woman feels your intent, she relaxes, not because everything is perfect, but because she no longer has to second guess. She's not constantly decoding mixed signals or questioning your motives. She feels the difference between a man who is present for convenience and a man who is present because he chose to be. That choice, that steady, deliberate attention is rare. And it speaks louder than any sweet word or romantic gesture. Women are spiritual by nature. They respond to depth, even if they don't articulate it that way. So when you approach her with genuine intent, you're not just touching her body or soothing her emotions. You're speaking directly to her spirit. You're telling her, without saying a word, I see you. I value you. I'm not here to take, I'm here to build. That kind of energy awakens something sacred in her. She begins to trust you with the parts of her she's kept guarded for years, not because she's weak, but because your strength created space for her truth. And let me be clear, intent doesn't mean rushing. It means alignment. A man of intent knows when to move forward and when to be still. He knows that every step, every word, every touch carries weight. He's not careless with her emotions because he respects her soul. And in doing so, he becomes more than just a man. He becomes a mirror for the kind of love she's always known she deserved, but never thought she'd find. That's the man who doesn't just leave a mark, he leaves a legacy. She remembers how he made her feel, not just desired, but divinely recognized. And that memory becomes the standard by which she measures every man who comes after him. So ask yourself, are you moving through life distracted, reactive, and aimless? Or are you leading with depth, with clarity, with intent? Because the man who licks her spirit with unwavering purpose is the man she trusts with her future, not just her feeling. And that kind of man doesn't just win her heart, he elevates her life.